Hello, children. How are you? Let's continue the story of the enemy written by Pearl S. Buck. We have so far studied that the Japan and America are at war, and it's the Japanese doctor who treats the American who is his enemy. What we observe here is the humanitarian help given by the Japanese. So let's continue with this story, The Enemy. Here the general says, I can understand fully. Here Dr. Sadao narrates the story how the American soldier was washed ashore and he came across him, and then after that he has carried out an operation on him and somehow he is saved. When he reveals this to the general, then the general says, I can understand your feelings and your action, but that is because I have also been in America as you have been. I have taken a degree in Princeton in America, and it's only few Japanese who have been in America, they can understand the kind of relationship one can have with these people. So the general says this, but immediately Sadao replies, I care nothing for the man. I'm not bothered about this man. But since I have operated on him, since I have performed operation on him, and that too I have been successful to save his life. And that is the reason I feel for him. Yes, the general said, it only makes me feel you more indispensable. You are very valuable for me. Evidently, that's a very clearly. You can save anyone because you are very skilled. You are a skillful person. You are a very good surgeon. And that is the reason why you are invaluable for me. Why the general says? Because there was an operation which was needed on him. You say you think I can stand one more such attack? So the general had heart attack. And he is asking doctor whether he can survive, whether he can withstand one more such heart attack as I have had today. Not more than one. He says, no, it's not possible, not more than one. Then certainly I can allow nothing to happen to you. So here the general doesn't want the doctor to be in trouble. It's because the general himself is very selfish. He wants to survive. And because of that, the general says, I don't want anything to happen to you. And if it is revealed that he has harbored, he has sheltered an enemy, definitely he would have been killed. He would have been arrested. He would have been behind the bars. His long, pale Japanese face became expressionless, which meant that he was in deep thought. He started thinking over that, suddenly lost himself. You cannot be arrested because if he requires a doctor, the doctor whom he can trust is Dr. Sadao. Suppose you were condemned to death. Suppose you are condemned to death after arrest. Then the next day I had to have my operation. If operation is required and if you are going to be hanged or you are going to be condemned to death, then. So he's worried over that. Sadao answers, there are other surgeons, Excellency, none I trust. The best ones have been trained by Germans and would consider the operation successful even if I died. So, in the case of Germans, for them it's a skill and they will not care even if the patient dies. I do not care for their point of view. It seems a pity that we cannot better combine the German ruthlessness. Now, here, ruthlessness, they mercilessness with the American sentimentality. Americans are very emotional, very sentimental people, whereas German, they are ruthless, merciless. Then you could turn your prisoner over to execution. And yet I could be sure you would not murder me while I was unconscious. So he was quite sure that he would see that nothing happens to him. And he was a very skilled surgeon. He had an unusual sense of humor. As a Japanese, could you not combine these two foreign elements? And you are a Japanese, you are emotional, and you can combine all these elements, and definitely you'll be able to save my life. Sadao smiled. I'm not quite sure, but for your sake, I would be willing to try. So I'm ready to do anything for your sake. That's what he reveals. The general shook his head. I'd rather not be the test case. So he doesn't want to be for a trial. He wants to be sure, and he is quite sure that it's a Dr. Sadao who is very skillful. He felt suddenly weak and overwhelmed. So he was filled with the emotions now, with the cares of his life as an official in times such as these when repeated victory brought great responsibilities all over the South Pacific. So he was a general and lot of responsibilities were on him. It is very unfortunate that this man should have washed up on your doorstep. So he says that quite unfortunate that such a person has been there who has been washed ashore. I feel it so myself, and he says, I am also feeling like that. So here the general is getting irritated over that. And what has happened to Sadao? He doesn't want Sadao to be in trouble, and that's why he reveals. And here the general gives the solution. It would be best if he could be quietly killed. So here he gives a solution that this man who is an enemy should be killed, and that too quietly. Otherwise, Dr. Sadao would be treated as a traitor and he would be arrested and he would be put behind the bars or he would have been killed. Not by you, you need not kill because I can understand how you are, but by someone who doesn't know him. Someone who doesn't know him, somebody who doesn't feel for him, who doesn't have concern for him. I am my own private assassins. And what does assassins means? Killers. So I have my own private assassins. I have got my own killers. Suppose I send two of them to your house tonight, or better, any night. You need know nothing about it. And you will not come to know anything about it. I'll send those killers to your house. It is now warm. What would be more natural than that you should leave the outer partition of the white man's room open? So you leave that partition open to the garden while he sleeps. So once you leave that open, these killers will come, they'll kill this American and they will leave. And nobody will come know about all that. Certainly it would be very natural and Sadao agrees to all that. In fact, it is so left open every night. Good, the general said, yawning. They are very capable assassins. So they are very capable killers. They make no noise and they know the trick of inward bleeding. If you like, I can even have them remove the body. And if you require, I'll ask them to remove the body too. So thou considered that perhaps would be best, Excellency. So, without any trouble for them, this American would be killed by the private assassins of the generals. So they come with this solution because Sadao also somehow wants to get rid of this American who has been in his house. He left the general's presence. That means he has left uh, the general and then he has gone back his home. And on the way home, he has been thinking over the plan that has been hatched along with the general. And what is the plan? To kill this Americans secretly. In this way, the whole thing would be taken out of his hands. And he is worried about Hannah. So you tell Hannah nothing since she would be timid at the idea of assassins, killers in the house. And these killers are going to enter their house and very quietly it is planned to kill the American. It's certainly, that is surely, such persons were essential in an absolute state such as Japan was. So, where absolute power was there, and in such a kind of in such a country, it was very much essential of these kind of killers. How else could rulers deal with those who oppose them? He refused to allow anything but reason to be the atmosphere of his mind as he went into the room where the American was in bed. So this thought was going on in his mind about the plan they had hatched up now. And then he goes to that room where the American was. But as he opened the door, to his surprise, he found the young man out of bed, preparing to go into the garden. What is this? Who gave you permission to leave your room? So he's a bit worried that others should not come to know about that. I am not used to waiting for permission. Tom said gaily, very happily said, I need not take anybody's permission. Gosh, I feel pretty good again. So I'm now feeling alright now. But will the muscles on this side always feel stiff? So why the muscles are quite stiff, hard? Is it so? Sada inquired, surprised. He forgot all else. He forgot about all that, whatever he had planned with the general. And now I thought I had provided against that. He murmured. And he lifted the edge of the man's shirt and gazed at the healing. So probably the healing wound that was taking place. So he just looked at that healing wound. So the wound is healed, and now what is it? There is a scar. Massage may do it. So what is to be done? Massaging has to be done. If exercise does not, so whatever is stiff, that hard part, that will go away if massaging is done. And this is the solution that is given by the doctor. It won't bother me much, the young man said. I won't be worried about that. His young face was gaunt under the stubbly blonde beard. Now his face was gaunt, it had become very weak. So he had become very, very weak and under the stubbly blonde beard. So the beard that one can see, that beard that is grown there, and there one can see the face which had become very weak. Say, doctor, I have got something I want to say to you. If I hadn't met a Jap like you, if I wouldn't have met Japanese like you, well, I wouldn't be alive today. If I am alive today, it's mainly because the kind of Japanese you are. I know that. Sadao bowed, but he couldn't speak. Sure, I know that, Tom went on warmly. So it's a warmth that you can see. He wants to express his gratitude for saving his life. His big thin hands gripping a chair wave wide at the knuckles. I guess if all the Japs were like you, there wouldn't have been a war. And see here, the Japanese had attacked the Americans. It's a Pearl Harbor which was attacked. And that's why Americans were forced to become a part of Second World War. Perhaps Sadao said with difficulty, and now I think you had better go back to bed. So it's a better, you better sleep. He helped the boy back into bed and then bowed. Good night, he said. Sadao slept badly. Why? Because he had planned with the general that they would quietly get killed this American. And that's why he was becoming restless all through the night, as he felt that the hired killers were there to kill the man. Time and again he woke, thinking he heard the rustling of footsteps, thinking that the killers had come, the sound of a twig broken or a stone displaced. But did they come? They did not come. But he was thinking about all that. Whenever he was hearing any noise, immediately he was getting up and he was not able to sleep properly. The next morning he made the excuse to go first into the guest room to find out whether the American was there. If the American were gone, he then could simply tell Anna that so the general had directed. But when he opened the door, he saw at once that there on the pillow was a shaggy blonde head. So that hairy blonde head, golden head. And who was that? That person was this American. He could hear the peaceful breathing of sleep. He was not aware of what the general had planned. And this American, what Dr. Sadao had planned along with general. And he was peacefully sleeping there. He's asleep, he told Anna. He's almost well to sleep like that. What shall we do with him? Sadao shook his head. I must decide in a day or two. Now it's a better as early as possible. Otherwise, this American would be killed by the general. He might send the assassins, but certainly thought the second might must be the night. There rose a wind that night and listened to the sounds of bending boughs and whistling partitions. So here Sadao is thinking that the killers might come at any time, whether there's any noise, immediately he's getting up, and that's why he's feeling totally disturbed. And Hannah also woke up because she also heard some sound. Ought we not to go and close the sick man's partition? No. Is able now to do it for himself. So should we not close the partition? She says. But Sadao had already hatched up a plan. But the next morning, the American was still there. He was thinking, okay, the killer would come, but the killers have not come. Then the third night, of course, must be the night. So he thought at least the third night, definitely the killers would come. The wind changed to quiet rain, so it started raining. The garden was full of the sound of dripping leaves and running springs. Sadao slept a little bit. But he woke at the sound of a crash and leapt to his feet. He felt, yes, the killers have come. What was that? Hannah cried. The baby woke at her voice and began to wail, started crying, I must go and see. But he held her and would not let her move. So when Hannah has heard that loud crash, she asks what it was. What is the matter? Don't go. Don't go. So he is thinking that it's the killer who have come. So he says, you don't go there. His terror, his fear infected her, and she also got worried. She stood breathless, waiting. There was only silence. Together they crept back into the bed, the baby between them. So they again went back to sleep. Yet when he opened the door of the guest room in the morning, there was this young man, even on that particular day. He was very gay, he was quite happy, and had already washed and was now on his feet. He had asked for a razor yesterday and had shaved himself, and today there was a faint color in his cheeks. I'm well, he said joyously. So he's quite happy and says, I'm quite fine. Sadao drew his kimono round his weary body. So he was wearing that kimono, outer garment, and his body was a very tired, exhausted body. He could not, he decided suddenly, go through another night. He can't wait one more night. It was not that he cared for this young man's life. No, simply it was not worth the strain. So why to put him in trouble? He decides about that and somehow he decides to get rid of him as early as possible. So Sadao tells him that he's quite fine, you are well. You are so well that I think if I put my boat on the shore tonight. So now he makes a plan with this American. He says, I'll put a boat there on the shore tonight with food and extra clothing in the boat. You might be able to row to that little island not far from the coast. So you go to that island, which is not very far from the coast, and you can use this boat and you can go to that coast. It is so near the coast that it has not been worth fortifying. So it has been so near that nobody has fortified that, no defense is there, so nobody will bother about that. Nobody lives on it because in storm it gets submerged. But this is not the season of storm, so you need not worry. You can always remain there. You could live there until you saw a Korean fishing boat pass by. And once you see Korean fishing boat, you can save your life. They pass quite near the island because the water is many fathoms deep there. So water is quite deep there. The young man stared at him, slowly comprehending. He started understanding that he has to escape now from there. Do I have to? I think so. You understand. It is not hidden that you are here. It is not hidden. Some people have come to know about that. And definitely, it will be a big problem for you as well as for me. What will Dr. Sadao do to get rid of the man? Very important question. So, what does Dr. Sadao do to get rid of this man? So, think over this question. Thank you.